Hi, Rhoda.
Hi, Ramide.
Thank you so much for offering to do this for the second time. You guys,
Of course.
Rhoda and I had this conversation the first time. Unfortunately, network was bad and most of it was breaking off and hanging. And so she graciously offered to come back. And her profile has improved since the last conversation we had. So I'm just going to read your bio from my phone and then we'll get into the conversation. Rhoda is a senior finance manager at Microsoft, where she partners with senior executives and cross functional leaders to drive enterprise financial strategy, gross margin optimization, and COGS management across diverse product portfolios. With over 5 years of experience in finance and accounting, she's recognized for translating complex financial analysis into decisive value creating outcomes that enable sustainable product and business growth across technology, logistics, and fintech. Rhoda's career is defined by a commitment to operational excellence, technological innovation, and long term value creation. So, welcome, Rhoda, to Careers in Accounting.
Thank
And
you.
just before I hand over to you, I just wanted to give you an idea of what this whole thing is about. Basically, Careers in Accounting is an opportunity for upcoming finance accounting professionals to have a glimpse into what the profession holds for them. A lot of people don't know the extent or the value that they can create for themselves, but just by studying accounting, by studying finance. A lot of people don't even know the amount of opportunities that are out there. So I bring professionals like you who just share about their career path and we just have a conversation, easy peasy conversation, and um, our viewers and anybody watching can learn from that. That's what I hope to achieve from here. So, let's get right into it. Rhoda, tell us about your career journey. And this one is especially interesting to me because of how your career has evolved over the last 5 years. So, tell us everything, no holds barred.
Sure. I think to firstly, thank you for having me. I've been watching some of the careers in accounting and I've been like amazing. And there's so many opportunities there and so many things to learn. But just in terms of my journey, I think it will go back a little bit to my probably 300 level. Yes, but taking a couple of steps back when I had to do my, I think it's SciWest or internship. I think then I was a student at Covenant University doing my bachelor's in accounting. And we had a 1 unit course that we had to do, which was an internship. And that period, I was just thinking, where can I go? Because I looked at all of my connections and my networks. I was like, I don't think there is really any place that I can go based on this or any place I really want to go. I wanted to work firstly at a big company, either a big four or a multinational, somewhere that had structure where I could see how those processes were. And so I got to know about like KPMG. Should I mention names? But I got to know about like one of the big fours that had like an internship going on. And I applied for it. Originally, I applied, I think I really wanted to do like management consulting, somewhere between audit and management consulting, because I wanted to try out both of them. And so I got to have that experience. I got to know how audit was. It was a really fun time. I enjoyed working there, but I realized that I don't think audit is for me. So that was the first realization I had. And I was like, okay, so what next? My SciWest was over. This was closer to graduation. Once again, I was like, I know the connections I have, and this is not really where I want to start from right now. And I don't really have a lot of opportunities, to be very honest. I had very limited opportunities at that time. So I was like, okay, let's make a list. What are all the things I want to do potentially, right? I wanted to try out maybe an accounting role, a finance role, a little bit of forensics. I had like a bunch of things in mind. I really wanted to try management consulting and then different types of companies, maybe a startup, right? What kind of startup? There was like a fintech on my list. I also wanted to try, like I said, larger companies, but maybe a different role. So I had like that target list, and I had to start looking for companies that were going to be recruiting and when their recruitment times were. A lot of them were not yet open as at the time I wanted to apply. So what I did was I saw a posting for a really small fintech. It was posted by one of the people in my university at the time. He used to help with like if you had like projects you wanted to create, he, was kind of like the leader and the owner of that space. So he posted a job, was at a little fintech. I applied, I got the job. I was so excited. And I was about to start my NYSC program. And then I saw an opening at Microsoft. And then a friend of mine sent it to me actually. And she was like, hey, I think, you'll be good for this. Apply to job at Microsoft. I was like, I don't have this in my bio. I also don't have this. Like, I have like maybe 60 to 70% of this. What's the point of me applying? She's like, just give it a shot. I was like, okay. So I just took my CV as scanty as it was and I sent it over. I think I will also mention I had a little bit of internships I did while I was in school. So it did help to build my CV, even though they were paying me like what, 5,000, 10,000 at the time. But like they were not asking about that. They were basically asking about experience, which was helpful. And I also had like some projects on my list, which I had done in school as for like different committees. So those were all on my CV. Send it over. And I was in my NYSC camp on a random day and I saw an email. It looked very suspicious. So I was like, is this a spam email? Because they even landed in my spam. So I just left it there and I was like, it's probably a spam. I'll think about it. The network in NYSC camp was horrible. So I did not have time to start going through it with all of the schedule and whatnot. So I got back home about 2, 3 weeks later, and then I was like, okay, let me look at this email really well. And it looked legit. I saw like Microsoft.com. I was like, this doesn't look like a scam. And then I started mailing back, no response. No response.
Wow.
I
Wow.
was looking for numbers to call, no response. And yeah, this was like months down the line. I got a random call from a UK number to start the interview process. And they say the rest is history. Since then, I have grown a lot. I was based out of the Lagos, Nigerian office. I started as a rotational analyst for almost 2 years, and then I moved over to the US where I have grown from a finance manager to a senior finance manager in a variety of roles. So, yeah.
Amazing career story. Because I remember that when you first came into the Lagos office, I was like, how can you start your career at Microsoft? I remember telling you, like, are you sure you don't want to start your career in the big four, especially because you interned there? But I like that you knew what you wanted. Someone sent me a message recently and she said, we want to hear your own career story too. so,
Yes.
so my career story is coming up, guys. But back to Rhoda, there's so many lessons to pick from your story. I think if I'm to just go back to your story, is first of all knowing what you wanted to do and the kind of companies that offered that sort of experience. A lot of people just graduate from university and then they just come out to the world and just take whatever is available. But you were clear on what you wanted to do. You were clear about where you had networks and where you didn't, and the additional work it would take you to get to where you wanted to be. That's one of the lessons that I picked from you just sharing your career journey. The other thing that I picked was being active, right? People always say, all these companies, they're looking for work experience, but you said you had done several internships even while you were in school, which meant, because I went to Covenant University and I know that there's only one major block. I think it's 200 to 300 level or so where you do that internship. But what I hear from you is you had been intentional about your holidays and using your holidays to get experience, irrespective of how little they were. And you were also doing projects in school. You were involved in extracurricular activities and you were able to use that to build your resume. It wasn't as robust as you would have, as they would have expected, but you had something already in the pipeline. That was what you went with. The
Yeah.
other lesson is taking a bet on yourself. Okay, I don't have all the requirements, but I will still go ahead and submit my application. A lot of people would have said, Microsoft, 1 million people would have applied.
Yeah.
1 million people would have applied. I'm sure I will have no chance here. And you wouldn't have known,
Mm-hmm.
right? What could have come out of that? I mean, look at you today from Microsoft Nigeria. You went on a career advancement journey. Your own is not Jackpot. From Microsoft Nigeria, you moved to Microsoft in the US and see how that has worked out for you. It's so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So, maybe my next question is, you already knew the companies that you wanted to work for, what you wanted to do. So if it wasn't Microsoft, it could have been something else. So did you try other things? Like while waiting
Yeah.
for Microsoft, did you try other things? And how did you eventually make the decision to stick with Microsoft? Obviously, the brand name, but what else did you consider?
Yeah, to be very honest, Microsoft was not one of the companies on my list. It wasn't. I had I had like my mind at that time, like Microsoft was not even one of the possibilities. What was there was like big four consulting firms, big four accounting firms, maybe some startups that I was interested in, like fintechs. So those were primarily the companies on my list. I had some interviews for like big fours. To be very honest, I also after like I was at the fintech for a bit, I realized this was really not for me. So audit was not for me. Working at a small company to start my career, I was like, I think maybe I will take a pause on this one and try becoming with a little bit more structure. So I was applying. I had some interviews. I had gotten some rejections, and I was still pushing. And then Microsoft came, and so I was like, do I also really want to start my company with a, straight from industry like in tech? And I wanted to go down a route of encouragement. So I looked for videos where people who were working at Microsoft, what they had to say, how their career had advanced. And I realized that it has a lot of the things I'm also looking for. Like it
Mm.
doesn't just have to be a big four, right? And so that was pretty much how I made my choice. So it wasn't like Microsoft was like the only thing on my list. It was not even on my list until like the possibility and my friend actually encouraged me to apply. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. The reason why I asked that question is big four companies, and I started my career in the big four, and I'm always, every time I look back, I'm super grateful for it because there's so many things that I learned from big four that I've taken on in my career journey. But in recent times, there's been a lot of buzz around like big four companies, and everybody wants to get into a big four company. In fact, I was tweeting the other day and I said, I am worried or concerned about this whole buzz because I don't want people to feel like if they don't get into Big Four, it means that their careers are doomed. And here is Rhoda. She interned in a Big Four. She could have had an easy pass back into the Big Four, being that she interned there, but she decided to try something else. And she's never worked in the Big Four. Internship was maybe 2 to 3 months, and
Yeah.
look at how she's progressed her career. So for someone watching that this at this point, it's nice if you start your career from Big Four, but let's be honest, not everybody will start their career from Big Four. And not starting your career from the Big Four is not a pointer to what your career could look like. If you start
Mhm.
your career in the Big Four, there are many people who started their career in the Big Four, they've not been able to transition into big tech. And there are
Mhm.
people like Rhoda who never started their career in Big Four and are now progressing their careers in the tech. I think what matters is wherever you are growing, you are learning, and you are adding value to yourself and to the organization. So you've just 5 or 6 years of experience. So maybe this question might be, but I'm sure you have something to what would you say were some of the key turning points in your career? I know like you came into Microsoft for the FRP program, and maybe you can explain what that is. Anyway, I guess people will reach out to you to ask, but maybe you can just explain. And
Mhm.
if I remember, you had to do multiple rotations, which was transitioning between different roles,
Mhm.
you know, in the company, and then picking the role that you went to the US for. And I think you've changed roles maybe 3 times. I guess you're
About
on your
twice.
third role.
Actually, this is the first time, sorry.
Sorry?
This is the first role I've changed to since then.
Oh, this is the first role. Oh,
Yeah.
so but okay, this is your second role in the US, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what were those turning points that made a difference if you reflect on your career journey?
Yeah. So I was actually thinking about something similar yesterday, and I was like, I think firstly, I will explain what the finance rotational program was. It's or is actually because it's still running, but it's a 2 years program where you get to explore four different rotations, at least about four, and you get to explore like different parts of Microsoft. And surprisingly, one of the things that really shocked me was how big Microsoft Finance is and how many different opportunities actually exist within it. So you get to have that experience of different aspects and different finance functions. You want to do like accounting, you want to do more of a finance role with the rhythm of business and more of a finance project role. Like there are different types of roles and across different functions of the business and different products that they have. So that's what the program was. I would say my turning point where firstly, I was when I joined, I think one thing I did not like was the fact that they chose what programs you get to do, like what rotations you get to do. And in the US, it was very different. People got to rank their rotations and choose
Mm,
what they wanted. I mean, at the end of the day, the slates landed, put you somewhere based on your rankings and other people. But at least there was that option. I would pretty much not get that option until like my last rotation. So I was a bit like, is it gonna be like the kind of experiences I'm getting? And when my third rotation was when I got to have more of a global experience, I got to enjoy that. I decided to graduate early, which means I decided to stop after my third rotation and not do a fourth one because of a variety of reasons, one of which was immigration. And I was just like assessing what was before me at the time. And I was like, I think it's best for me to get into a permanent role. So I decided to just take that leap. That was one point. I'm for the manager that took a bet on me because especially when you're on the field, you don't know a lot of people in the US who are hiring. Like
mm,
they don't know you, you know them. So it's more of a, it's pretty much a chance at that point. And also because there are a lot of other FRPs that were graduating, a lot are based in the US. They could have easily had someone from there. But she said to take a bet on me. That was one turning point. I remember like 1 year after I started the role, I decided to seek a feedback opportunity from my manager, which I don't recommend you do. I recommend seek feedback very often. Don't wait until it's like maybe performance review cycle or stuff. And then I was chatting with my friends and I was like, they also work at Microsoft. I was like, hey guys, what's going on with performance reviews? They were like, oh, you've started having those conversations? Oh, like performance reviews in like what 3 months down the line. If you're just having it now, that's a problem. And then I realized, okay, I'm way behind. And
mm,
so I prepared a presentation for my manager to say, this is what I have done. This is what, you expected. And then crickets, silence. I was like, that is not good. So she did not, she did not acknowledge, she did not approve. And then I realized, okay, I don't think I'm performing at a promotion level, like a level to get a promotion. And so I started to lock in. I started to like go deeper and I think within like 5 months, I was able to transform that story from like crickets to like this is what Rhoda did. Like not just my manager, but even my skip manager, because at that point we went through like a bit of a change on my team. So my skip became my manager. But anyways, even with all of the change and some of my like business partners, everybody was like, oh yeah, Rhoda did this, Rhoda did that. And now then I
nice.
realized, okay, so this is what I need to do. Got it. So that was kind of like my first one. And then I was on the team, for a bit longer. And then we went through a lot of change. So I got to have like a variety of experiences even on the team, which was super helpful. I got to like do different roles apart from mine. But then also I was like, okay, I think it's time for, it. And so I pivoted, started looking for a new role. And I realized it was still a bit tough in this climate. But I'll say the two toughest moments for me have been when I had saying have conflicts with people, but
Mm,
times when I've had like conflicts. Within that 5 months, there was a very big project on my team, and there was just a lot of like conflict and clashes at that moment. There was like something going on. But just being able to get guidance, navigate the scenario, and still be able to land impact, ensuring like there is clarity and partnerships across all of my business partners, stakeholders, and communicating, the outcomes and the progress also to leadership was super important. So I'll say, moments where there are tensions and difficulties, opportunities always lying there. Because even when my team had like a lot of posts, we had a lot of churn, and so having to take on more scope, a lot of that, my manager came in and said, oh yes, Rhoda did this, she was able to cover, our business partners had the same testament. And so even my new manager, who had never worked with me before, because he heard that, he knew he could trust the words of those different people to know that Rhoda is going to do great. And so that's how I got the promotion into the different role. So yes, I'll say those have been some of the turning points in my career.
Thank you so much. This was not a question I planned to ask you, by the way, but I think since we're here,
Mhm.
what would you say are some of the critical success factors, like the work style? Obviously, it's a multinational. You working in Nigeria, and then you're working cross-functionally in the US. What would you say are some of the critical factors?
That's a very good question. I feel like I'm still early in my career, so I can only talk from my experience and what has worked for me. But I would say having a mentor is super important. Like, there were things that from my perspective, I was like, let me just continue as things are, let me just keep going with the flow. But my mentor would be like, I don't think that's the right approach. Like maybe speak out or seek help or discuss this with your manager. That kind of guidance from people is like super important. Secondly, like work I'll say have work friends, right? Like people at work who are also like going through a similar journey as you. Because if not for that conversation where they're like, oh, you said speaking
Hmm.
about career, I would have probably still been maybe where I am, and I would not have known what was wrong, right? So
Yes.
people who can help you see things from a different perspective and you actually taking action, I think that's super important. Another thing would be, I know opportunities differ by location. And that's one thing I would actively like recognize, because the opportunities when I was based out of our sub office in Nigeria is very different from those that are here, right? Even though, I mean, there are still difficulties here, but like there are much more opportunities before me. So I can actually see what the future could look like. And to an extent, you even know that you have the ability to shape what you want,
Mm-hmm.
which was very different from, when you're on the corp. So I also recognize that, seize opportunities if you find it. If you know that's something that you want to do. And I know it may take time, right? So, but another thing I would say has really worked for me, or has helped me in general. Yeah. And seek feedback from your manager. Like, don't wait till performance review is coming up like I did in the past. Now every time I'm like, so what's on your mind? What do you think I can do better? How am I performing? Sometimes I want to ask it more bluntly, but sometimes I just sugarcoat it. So yes, but always make sure you're knowing where your manager's mind is, especially now that things are very fast paced in tech. Like, things are always changing. The goal yesterday may not be the goal today, or the
Mm-hmm.
goalpost has moved further. So always make sure you kind of know where the space of the team is, or where the head of the team is. And the more you understand like the dynamics on the team, the more you're able to navigate all of that. But yes, I think those are some of the things that have helped me.
Thank you so much. I what you said about opportunities and location impacting on opportunities, because I remember, like, I tweeted a couple of months ago, and I said working in HQ versus working in the branch, they're two different
Yeah.
experiences, and um, that's exactly what you're talking about. The opportunities you have to grow your career, the kind of people you interact with, sometimes is dependent on the location that you find yourself in. And I'm glad to see what the US opportunity has done for you. I can tell you for free that you've grown so much.
Thank you.
So what does your typical day look like working in corp?
Yeah. My days tend to differ, but I could give like a general idea. I wake up like 6. I probably don't. But pretty much wake up sometime between 6 to 7, 2 minutes past 7. I try to start my day with something personal. So either I'm doing like my exercises or personal devotion, something personal. And then work starts roughly around like 8, 8:30. Pretty much a day at work, and I know you want to get more insight on what I do at work. I do a lot of like business partnerships, and now that I've changed roles, I partner a lot with finance. So pretty much rhythm of business. We have like outlooks, we have close, we have forecast. So probably I'm usually doing one of those things or working on projects and how to improve any of those processes, right? And I also have to partner with engineering because we're trying to actually create like systems for what we're doing. So not just simpler automations, but actually creating processes from maybe the
Mm-hmm.
accounting level all the way down to the finance level to make it more easier. So pretty much a lot of work, finance partnership, engineering and business partnerships, preparing the business for the next cycle, whether looking forward or obviously have to also look back for close, and just understanding all of that story for the business. Work ends around 5. So hopefully at the time where things are not crazy, it's pretty smooth. And then the rest of the evening is something personal. I was also doing my master's, so I usually had like evening classes around then. So usually something personal, trying to learn something or just take a break. But let me know if you want me to like double click on any particular part. But yes, and
No, I
oh,
no, I think good enough. The reason why I asked that question is a lot of people say like accounting is boring, finance is boring, and I just want people to get a glimpse of what a typical day looks like. Let's be honest, finance, not everybody is punching numbers. As a matter of fact, I would say that I spend most of my time analysis, meetings, making
yeah,
decisions, clarifying processes and things like that, solving problems, giving insights, providing clarity, and things like that. So that's why I asked the question, and I think that your response has given
yeah,
us a glimpse into what your day looks like. So, what would you say are the critical success, the skills, both hard and soft skills, that you require to be successful in your role?
yeah. Starting with hard skills, I would definitely say a lot of AI automation is happening. Things are gonna happen in the future. Things are happening now. But I would say starting with Excel. I mean, while Excel is still here and while it's still relevant, Microsoft Excel, I would say schools, when I was in university, they didn't really teach us how to use Excel as much. It was mostly focused on some accounting packages and probably outdated ones. It could be helpful to learn like accounting packages, especially if you're going into like maybe a smaller firm and you're, going to be doing accounting or maybe even the end-to-end financials. Um, so I'll say definitely learning how to use Excel. We live and breathe in Excel in finance at Microsoft. I know some other companies may be different, but also accounting packages, if you could get your hands on them, try them out, especially if you want to actually do core accounting and you really want to understand all of that, P&L and balance sheet and whatnot. But even I would say there are a lot of soft skills. Firstly, you need to be a learner. Like you need to be curious. You need to want to know to learn because technology is changing. Like there are new tools coming in. There's a lot of hype about like using Python and using GitHub Copilot and using AI tools in general to like
Mm-hmm.
automate processes, make things easier and make things simpler, make things more automated. So a lot of things are gonna come. I don't know what the future has, but definitely being curious and being a learner. I've met a lot of people who the sound of AI doesn't please them. So if the case, yeah, I want to think about that a little bit, but definitely being a learner, like being curious to know like what is out there, what can this technology actually do? A lot of business partnerships because you don't work in isolation, especially now that things are really fast paced.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take like a group of people along. You can't execute all alone because you're just going to burn out. You definitely need to partner with maybe engineers, partner with other colleagues. If you're trying to automate a flow, there is an input from somewhere. You are probably one of the users of the input. There's an output somewhere. So there are so many dependencies. And so all of that business partnership, willingness to understand the processes and the business, and taking your time, because learning also takes some time, and just being willing to invest that time to understand what's happening. I'll say those are some of the key hard skills and soft skills that you probably need for your role. So yes, let me know if there's any other key one that you have in mind that you have missed. But I think those are some of the strong ones that are like super important.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. But what I wanted to emphasize was, you know, you go to school, get a degree, and you think that your hard skills, your technical skills, are the things that are going to carry you. For example, I was expecting you to talk about knowledge of accounting, but
Mm,
today, like people that didn't study accounting are accountants. So that's
yeah.
something you can actually learn, right?
Mhm,
But what really helps you be a good become successful in whatever path are actually the soft skills that
mhm,
nobody teaches us in school.
yeah.
When you talk about business partnering, it's just collaboration, being able to work with people, being able to
Mhm,
communicate within a team, being able to, ask the right questions. That's essentially
mhm,
what a business partner does. Being able to
yeah.
guide and guide,
Mhm,
in order for you to provide clarity or guidance, you need to understand the processes, right?
yeah.
Being a continuous learner, because things are always changing and people
Yeah.
are looking up to you as finance business partner, to come and unravel come and untangle the mess we don't understand, come and provide clarity. And those are
Yeah.
things that nobody teaches us. And
Mhm,
if you've watched several of these episodes, you will notice that a lot of our speakers have placed more weight on the soft skills, because the hard skills you can learn, the hard skills you can automate.
mhm,
You don't have to. I don't post debit and credits, right? You can automate those things, but the soft skills, those are
mhm.
very important, and those are critical for success in any career path. So thank you, Rhoda. Have you faced any challenges in your career journey? And if yes, did you overcome them?
Ooh. I faced quite a bit. And I think I've mentioned some probably already in this video. But I'll say one of the most remarkable challenges, the one that usually strikes my memory. I would actually mention two. One when I was still an analyst, and I'll just briefly touch on that. I remember when we had like budget season coming up, and at the same time, I had like a personal thing going on. I had to like move houses, and I had to move like a fully four, I think three, 4 bedroom by myself and my brother. So it was like really conflicting at that moment. I remember that period. It was a Saturday, and I was a Saturday and a Sunday. I was sitting in the middle of the mess, and I was working because it was budget season. And my manager, like after budget wrapped up, he was like, "Oh, my manager at the time, he felt like he was all alone and like he felt like I was doing well, but during budget, he doesn't know what happened." And I'm like, I was working hard. I was working over. Like, where was this break in communication? And I think that's one of the things that I would say also was a lie. That was my first not so great feedback I ever got in my career. And I would say probably maybe one of the worst still. But I realized it's really important to make sure you're on the same page. Like, communicate the expectations ahead of time, clarify things. What exactly am I needed? Because you may not even be needed to pull in that much hours if you
Mm,
make what was needed before, right? It's like working on the weekends, definitely work during your work time. But like, I think that's one of the difficulties and one of the learnings for me. And that was one of the things that made me want to improve on my communication much better. Um, and another one was pretty much navigating things in the work environment. So in my previous role, I had a colleague who was, he recently joined the team also. This was a couple more months down the line. And I feel like there was some tension on the project. So this was a project that was within my scope, right? but I felt like there was beginning to like come in a little bit more and trying to like come in when things were, it was time for, the up and to, say, okay, the work has been done, put the bow tie on top. And I was like, and yeah, he was trying to be pushy about how I spend my time. And he was like, oh, can you do this right now? And this was like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. So like, I'm like, I can give you this tomorrow, but like, this is still my project. So like, I have like the scope in mind, I have the timeline in mind. And then he was like, oh, well, I've already had a conversation with our manager. So if you think this is not right, like, take it up with her. I was like, what? So I did go to have a conversation with my manager because that was tough for me. Like, I was like, I have to bring one of my colleagues to my manager. I feel like I'm not tattletale or something. Anyways, and I spoke to my manager, like, hey, this situation happened. I need to know that I'm empowered to push back, to say no, say yes, whatever. And she was like, oh yes, for sure. And so she was like, should I have a conversation with both of you and clarify this? And she was like, oh no, okay. I was like, no, you could go ahead and have that conversation with him yourself. And then I could also clarify with him. So pretty much that helped to put clarity on who was doing what and who was owning the project, and just to avoid, unnecessary things. And definitely like seek help when help is needed, but like there just needed to be some structure in terms of the project because things were beginning to feel a little bit conflicted. So I'll say that was one thing, and that was part of the navigating relationships. Not there, and there's no one rule for like navigating different types of scenarios and partnerships, but this was just one, and this was the way I knew to deal with it back then. And there are many different ways to deal with it depending on what your communication is with this person or what level the relationship is. So yes, I'll say that was people have been one of the biggest. And typically when you work with a lot of business partners and a lot of people, the conflicts will definitely come up. So knowing how to navigate those conflicts, communication, I would say it's going to be super important. So yeah.
How did you overcome the bad blood, or was there no bad blood? Because if you go and report me to the manager, and then the manager is calling me to talk to me, and then we
Mhm.
have to still work together, as how now? You could have just come to meet me.
I feel like I mean we already had a conversation, but both of
Okay.
us were not on the same page, right?
Mm.
So this is what he was saying I should do something, and he said he already had a chat with my manager that I should be doing this, and I was like, that's different from my understanding. So I had to go to my manager at that point to clarify it. Like I said, like we already had that conversation, so definitely start maybe I don't know. There's no one way, whatever works for you, but clarifying that. Now, was there bad blood? I can't really say. I would if there was, it wasn't too obvious. I think there was clarity for both of us, like whose
Okay.
scope is what, right? And when I know some projects can be really heavy, so when help is needed, we lean in when those projects are needed, right? So and shortly after, like things changed on the team, so yeah, things will continue to move on. So yeah, it was all good.
Yeah.
I think my
Yeah.
manager she knew how to handle such situations, so it wasn't really too tough in terms of like afterwards.
I mean, that's an of real life workplace, you know, people issues.
Yeah.
You have a colleague, the way they do things is very different from the way you do things, and you have to work together. And
Mhm.
both of you know that you need the salary and you need your career growth. So you
Mhm.
must find a workaround that works for both parties. So I'm glad your manager was able to step in and the bad blood was not obvious. It doesn't seem
Yeah.
like there was bad blood. It seems like everybody was just like, okay, do your thing, do my thing, you know.
Yeah.
So you talked about AI earlier, right? And all the disruptions that AI is bringing into our profession. Would you like to
Yeah.
say something about that? How do you think that AI would impact on the accounting and finance profession over the
Mhm.
next, say, 5, 10 years?
Yeah. So honestly, I also want to know. I am waiting to see. I've read some articles saying like within 18 months, a lot of jobs are going to be completely automated, or maybe even if it's not completely, like very automated. And finance and accounting was on the list. And there are a bunch of others on the list. So there are a lot of us who are trying to, watch and see. But also, even like closer to me, bringing it home, what I see in my work is there is actually a lot of tools have developed. Like, I am actually really surprised. The Claude and Chat GPT of last year is not the one of this year. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, the one of January, because I remember trying to work on some project, and I was like, this output is very, it needs a lot of help. And like later, like maybe like last month, I was like, wow, like this is good. Like obviously,
Mm-hmm.
it still needed some edits and to structure it the way I wanted it to be, but I could clearly see the improvements. So AI is really advancing at a super fast pace. Now what is the future gonna be like? I can't really say, but definitely there's going to be automation. Repetitive processes, manual processes, we're probably gonna see more of a process flow and a structure to it. And things are even changing. Previously, you hear things like, "Oh, learn how to use Python, learn how to code." But now, like GitHub Copilots, like Claude, like I use Claude a lot. I use a lot of these different tools, but like you get the entire code and I like
Mm-hmm.
copy, paste, run it. Sometimes maybe there's a couple of bugs, send it back. I'm like, it's like, oh, this is the error. And then in a matter of minutes, everything is working, right? And obviously it depends on what level of product you're trying to build or what level of automation you're trying to do. But like my point is there are already tools that already can give you the code that can run a lot of these things. And I don't think it's a joke when they say automation is coming. I think automation is pretty much here. And there's
Yes.
definitely more coming. Like
Mm-hmm.
things are changing, capabilities are improving. But I think the point where we come in is what we know, right? Firstly, what do we know now? We know that we are the main point of every information is to make a decision,
Yes.
right? And all of those inputs may flow in, but at the end of the day, do you understand what this data is saying? You understand what it means? How can we use this information to actually influence business outcomes? So how can we use it to change the future, right? And that's
Mm.
where human beings make the decisions. We are responsible for making decisions on other people, and even though to an extent AI can say, hey, I think this is what would work, at the end of the day, you are the one who knows. And when I mean you, I
That's
mean
gonna
human
work.
people
Yeah.
are the ones who know what what impact is going to be beyond just the financial impact, like the social impact and other, like you can look at it from broader lens and even
Mm.
connecting it back to the business, right? What is the best decision for this business at this time, right? And even for the future. So definitely in terms of like decision making, so understand your data, right? As been trying to do, understand like the data, understand the product, understand the business, understand the scope, but understand also how can we use this to influence, which is also a point I'm trying to grow into in my career. Like how can I know all of this information, but now how can I influence the business? Because that's where there is probably a lot more potential now and probably in the future. And depending on how AI evolves, we would see where it takes us and where we go. But yes, that's kind of what I'm thinking about it right now.
Thank you so much, Rhoda. And I agree with you that the tools have improved significantly. But I had an
Hmm.
I think last month, and if I did not know my onions, if I
Oh
didn't
yeah,
know how the thing works, I would have been disgraced. I would have been embarrassed
yeah,
because of the outputs that AI gave me. So I like to emphasize that while AI is good, it's amazing, it helps
yeah,
us with our productivity and all that, helps us do our job better. The still remains on you to know your onions because it's literally garbage in, garbage out, right? And every AI tool that I've come across would always remind you that AI is not perfect, right?
oh
Even in
yeah.
the natural language, when you give your AI tool a prompt, it asks you
Mhm.
questions back because it does not have context other than what you provided to it. It does not
Yeah.
have understanding, it does not have judgment, it does not have emotions outside of what
Mhm.
you have provided to it. And that's where we cannot afford to just outsource our thinking, outsource our experience, outsource our judgment to an
Yeah.
AI tool or even an automation. So, how do you know that the automation runs well if you don't have an understanding of the process itself, end to end. It's your understanding of the process itself that will help you check and confirm that the automation works well. So
Mhm.
for me, I believe that tools will continue to evolve. The way we
Mhm.
do our work will continue to improve, but AI cannot replace our judgment, it cannot replace our experience, it cannot replace the context. And what you said
Yes.
about the way you use the output to make a decision, right? The way
Mhm.
you use the output AI gives you to make a decision can make or mar an organization. AI can say go ahead, but there may be
Mhm.
macroeconomic issues, there may be political issues, pestle
Yeah.
different pestle issues, environmental issues that can
Mhm.
stop you. That may be the deciding factor. Other qualitative factors that may be the deciding factor on go or no go. Right. So very
Yeah.
important.
And obviously,
So
like I agree with what you said in terms of like the output and knowing your onions or yes,
yes.
AI hallucinates a lot. As someone who uses it pretty often, I also know that it hallucinates. I'm like, where did you get this number from? I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. So yes, it does hallucinate. You can't trust it 100%, but like you said, you still gotta know your stuff. So
Yes, it's very important that you know your stuff. So we're wrapping up now, Rhoda. Someone is watching you right now, and they are graduating soon, and they're wondering, what's the next step for me? What advice would you give to that kind of person? What advice would you give to an aspiring accountant who doesn't
mhm.
want to work in the Big Four, despite how attractive it sounds, and wants to consider an alternative path? What would you tell them?
Yeah, firstly, congratulations in advance on your graduation. It can be very exciting and scary at the same time, wondering what's out there. But first thing I would say is start with what's in your hand, right? Be honest with yourself. Evaluate what are the opportunities that are actually available for me. What's actually out there, right? Where do I want to go? Why do I want to go here, right? And don't limit yourself to a box. Give yourself options, opportunities, and always be flexible as to what actually comes out, right? I would say nowhere is a destination, right? You're
Hmm.
on your life journey. So you started somewhere, does not mean that that's where you're always going to be. And for that to also be a fact, you also have to make sure you don't sit down and just fold your arms. You're somewhere, is that's just one place in your journey, but use it as a stepping stone to where you want to be. So don't get too comfortable. That's not your destination. It's very easy to fall into the trap of giving all of your time and all of your emotions to one thing, and that thing may not even be where you want to go. So
Hmm.
be honest with yourself, be frank with yourself, invest in yourself, continue to push forward, and yes, see where the journey takes you as you continue to evolve. So yeah.
Thank you so much. I love what you said about flexibility
Mhm.
and just taking a bet on yourself, giving yourself the opportunity to explore. I always say that if I could go back in time, I would explore much more than I did. I don't think I explored as much. I just wanted to work in Big Four. And I was just like, and I thought I'll be a partner, but look at me today. So allow yourself explore, allow yourself be flexible, try new things, be curious, be honest. What you said, be honest about where you are and what you have and what is in your hands. Starting in a small firm or in a small company is not is not a final verdict on your career. I know people who started in small firms and they moved to bigger firms and eventually they grew their careers. So don't feel like you have to box yourself into anything. Thank you so much, Rhoda. And thank you especially for agreeing to do this again. I promise
Sure.
you, this video is much better. As you may have noticed, there's no network issue.
I know
Thank you
this.
so much. A link to Rhoda's LinkedIn will be in the description box in case you want to reach out to her. Please be kind and be mindful of her own personal schedule. As always, I'll see you guys next time, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Thank you. See y'all.
Bye. Bye.